I started birth control when I was 15 years old.
One of the lesser known side effects of birth control is its impact on your digestive system.
I always thought I was doing everything right. So it was kind of like, why is this all so bad if I feel like I'm just doing everything that everyone's been telling me?
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of She's in Sync, the podcast for women looking to have a safe and enjoyable transition off of birth control. So, I have a very special guest with me, Olivia. She is a actually current client with me. We're just wrapping up our time together. But we've been working together for the past several months. And Olivia came to me wanting to have a safe transition off of birth control. She actually found me from a podcast that I was a guest on. And we have just had such a great working relationship. And I feel like her story is going to be so relatable to a lot of you. And the goal of me bringing on current and previous clients is really to inspire you and show you that it is possible to safely transition off of birth control without breakouts, painful or missing periods, bloating, all that kind of stuff. And so we're going to dive into Olivia's story and a little bit about what we've been working on. So thank you for coming on the show, Olivia.
Thank you for having me. I'm
Yeah.
so honored. This is so exciting.
Yeah, well, like I said, you found me on a podcast and you were someone like instantly I was like, I am gonna love working with this girl because you came to the discovery call, we chatted, and you're like, I'm in, like let's do it. And you were just from day one, like, tell me what I need to do and I will do it.
At that point, I was just so desperate for something. I've been trying everything in the world. I bet a lot of your viewers or even yourself in the past have found yourself just deep diving the internet, trying to find different ways to like heal yourselves, go to the doctor, this X, Y, and Z. And I was literally on my way to work. I was like traveling like across the state for a work thing, and I was like in the car for over an hour, and I was like, I've never done this before, but I was just like, how to get off birth control in my Spotify like search bar. I was like, I've never searched something like this before, but I was so desperate. I was like, I want to try to listen to a podcast and like just see if anything comes up. And then the one that you were a guest on, I forget the name. I wish I didn't. But it was the first one that came up, and I listened to it on the way to work, and then I finished it, and I was like, I'm gonna call, or I'm gonna do, I went
Hit
to your
me up.
website, I hit you up immediately, and I was like, sign me up, I'm doing this.
Yep. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about your birth control story. So when did you start? Why did you start? And then what made you want to get off?
I started birth control when I was 15 years old. It was due to having my first boyfriend and
So you started actually for pregnancy prevention.
pregnancy
Okay.
prevention of
Hmm.
my mom's request, of course. I feel like at that time in my life, I was kind of like, you're young. And I look back and it was a very young age, but I just feel like I didn't want my mom to know. And then it happened, and she's like, we're getting you on birth control immediately. I don't remember my reaction to it, but I think it was kind of just like, there's no choice, we're doing it. And I've been on it ever since. And up until a month ago when I got off of it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
almost 10 years.
Yep. And when you say you were like desperate and wanted to come off, like what type of symptoms were you experiencing? What made you decide you wanted to quit?
I would say almost 2 years ago, I kind of started dealing with some um, gut issues, a lot of fatigue. I was gaining weight. I just like was not feeling good in my skin. I come from a family, and I've told you before, my mom has thyroid disease. One of my dad's sisters, she's like a thyroid doctor, and I feel like I've had like a really good support system of people that have been able to give me really great information and also set myself up for success when it comes to taking care of my body physically, mentally, and just nourishing my body. So I was kind of always one of the more like healthier girls in like my friend group, and kind of just like always wanting to nourish my body the best way I can, always with the balance. But I just like was like, I'm doing everything right. I'm working out constantly. I'm weightlifting 6 times a week. I eat well. I don't eat a lot of carbs, like all the things that you tend to hear of like just trying to live that healthy life. And I was feeling the worst I ever did. It kind of just like was like an overnight thing where I was getting really tired and needed to nap by 12 p.m. I couldn't fit into any of my clothes anymore. Every time I would eat something, I would literally have like a piece of lettuce, I would look like I'm pregnant. Like I would just get this extreme amount of bloating, and I had no idea what was going on. I cried my eyes out every single day. I was getting tested. I got blood work done. I did a urine test. I cut out dairy and gluten, and that started to help. But I every single time I would start to feel some sort of relief and feel like I could kind of get back into my normal routine. I would just it would go down all over again, and I would kind of just like fall back into this space where like I it felt like a really like out of body experience. Like I could say all these things of like, oh, I felt bloated. Okay, but people deal with that all the time. Or like I just like felt really tired, and like so like people didn't really take me seriously because I feel like a lot of people are just always complaining of like, oh, I feel bloated after I eat, or like this and that. Like you'll feel better the next day. But this was something where I was like, something is really wrong. And at that point, I just wanted to take it into my own hands. Even though I had the support from these people, I kind of needed to like put them to a side and be like, I tried what you have been suggesting, but it's not working for me. So I needed to like go in my own direction and kind of do a little bit more digging. And that's when I started seeing I was kind of like trying to check off the boxes of like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And the only thing that I didn't do was quit birth control. So that's when I kind of started to like think like maybe this is one of the root causes to what I'm dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a really good backstory because a lot of your symptoms, like you mentioned, your gut, like you're bloating, just inflammation, like feeling uncomfortable in your body. And so, one of the lesser known side effects of birth control is its impact on your digestive system. So
Hmm.
it impacts your GI system in a variety of ways. And we're going to dive into your specific labs here in a little bit. But it depletes minerals, which you need enough minerals to make stomach acid to digest and absorb food. And you need birth control can negatively impact the good bacteria in your gut and encourage the growth of bad bacteria. So there's so many different things that birth control does that can lead to chronic bloat, fatigue, and then
Hmm.
that leads to mental health symptoms, anxiety, depression, like everything. It's just the whole body is tied together. So
It really started, and then what I think also is that what you told me as well is because on top of that, my mental health started declining. I was constantly stressed. I was constantly thinking about how I was feeling, what I was eating. Um, I was concerned of just to simply go out with my friends or my boyfriend because I didn't want to eat something that I felt like was going to upset my stomach because everything was upsetting my stomach at that point. So I was isolating myself. I have my career in marketing really revolves around me being like on the internet. I didn't want to do my job anymore. I was kind of like overall not myself, and I like was like this is taking over my entire life. And I don't feel like if you're not really intuitive with your body, I don't think people realize how detrimental that is to like your overall 360. Like it's just like it was taking over my entire life, and I couldn't really even recognize myself anymore.
yeah. Yeah, and you are very intuitive. Like that's a definite strength that you have where you're like, okay, something is off and you were I like how you spoke to also like you had seen a lot of providers. Like you had, gone to different people. And I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of the times when you were working with someone, they were just isolating one body system of like, let's just look at the thyroid, let's just look at the gut. Versus when we're working together, one of the things that differentiates how I approach it is we look at every single body system because the body doesn't function in isolation. We
Mhm.
can't just look at the gut because it's like I said earlier, it's like, well, what if our mineral stores are low? What if we have
Right.
poor cellular health? What if we have iron overload that's feeding gut pathogens? There's so much that goes into it, which is why we run these targeted labs specific to your goals in the stopping birth control to get that holistic picture.
Right. Yeah. I didn't have the knowledge before, so I was like, oh, I'm getting blood work. So it's kind of like I think like, oh, I am kind of getting this whole panel, but like in reality, it actually wasn't. It was a really good learning to like advocate for yourself and also really understand what type of test you're getting so you could like know what part of the body or if it is like the whole 360 of the body like you're
Yep.
saying.
Yeah, I have so many people who most of the time people have done a lot of research and they've tried a lot of things by the time they get to me, similar to your story. And I have a lot of people who are like, well, I just ran these labs, can we use any of these? And most of the time, I will say like 99% of the time, I'm like, this really doesn't give me anything. Like the labs that they run are very surface level and they don't give me the whole picture of things. So I mean, there are some exceptions, but
Mm,
what your standard doc is going to run, or even some functional providers, it isn't getting the whole picture view of things, especially when it comes to stopping birth control, which is important.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's dive into what we found. So before we even ran labs, we did a deep dive assessment. So right away, one thing we started talking about was everyone's favorite topic, stress management, which, like you said, it's a double-edged sword. It's like, you were stressed because of your symptoms, but then because you didn't feel good, that was also causing stress. And so it was just like this, constant negative feedback loop where we kept getting stressed because of like how we were feeling, but then that was also causing more stress. And so we really talked about like, okay, what are actionable things we can do to help manage stress as much as possible? Like recognizing, like you're a career woman, like you're traveling, you're doing all these things. And that was something I remember we talked about from day one, as well as just making sure that you were nourishing your body appropriately. You were in it, like not purposely, but you weren't eating enough for the level of activity you were doing. And then also, like you said, you were pretty nervous around food because of the bloating and just how a lot of food made you feel and going out to eat made you feel.
Yeah. So overall, I think you painted it perfectly. It's like overall, I couldn't tell anymore where my stress was coming from. Like, was it my job? Was it my home life? Or was it like, it was like, I feel like just all of the above. It was kind of like my stress levels were through the roof. And when you think, oh, like, deal with your stress, like get some sleep, meditate, go for a walk. And it's like, those are like really great things, but they were like really quick fixes. And I don't think I was ever like truly trying hard enough to like actually manage my stress and deal with it on a daily basis, which is something that like I'm so glad we got to work through together because I think to this day I'm not perfect at it as most of us aren't, but I
Trying so
feel
hard.
like it's kind of like I could get through my days and understand what triggers are and what aren't. And I definitely see a difference in my gut when it
Yep.
comes to that stuff too.
Yeah, and that's like I always call it like the least sexy thing to focus on. Like no one wants to focus on stress management or their nervous system, including me. Like I'm the same way as you. Like just it's ever evolving, definitely not perfect, but it's much better than it used to be.
Yes.
But yeah, stress is everything, and not just emotional stress, but also physical stress. Like if we're under fueling ourselves or if we're low in minerals, which we'll get into with you, like we were very depleted. And that can make it so that when we do have stress, we're less stress resilient. We can't respond to that stress. So it's not just about meditating or like, we can't move to like a deserted island and quit our job. Like it's how do we handle stress and how can we like on a cellular level make for sure that we're more resilient to stress when we have it through nutrition and lifestyle and just more awareness too. So you did a great job working through that as we work together. And I can even tell like now, like meeting with you, like I can tell you have a better grasp on that.
Hmm. Definitely. Also, I just like my attitude about things were kind of like different, if that makes sense. Like I was aware. Um, I always feel super aware that like something is wrong, but at the same time, I just like kind of was like it is what it is. But now I'm kind of like there's ways to deal with it and get through it and stuff like that. So I think a part of that is also the changes that I've made in my exercise. I haven't been doing anything that's super hard strength training that I used to do for many years that made me feel like my absolute strongest. But now that I'm in this different part of my life, like it's okay to not work out and put that much stress on my body. I'm like into more like lower intensity workouts and I do reformer Pilates a couple times a week and I feel again I it's like a different type of strength, but I feel like really good in my body and I also feel like using that breath work that I'm doing in like my workouts now is like totally not what you do with like really hard, heavy hitting strength training. But that was also a part of, I feel like, my stress where I was kind of like so used to it. And I was like, that's the only way I'm going to get in a workout or feel strong or feel like I could still be lean if I'm like doing something like that. But in meanwhile, like I really needed to shake things up because consistently doing that for like over 2 years was like definitely doing so much more damage than
Yes.
good at all. So,
Yes. And one of the things I remember too that we talked about was because like you were just constantly go, go, go. Like, you would wake up really early in the morning and then you'd work out, get a heavy workout in,
yeah.
and then you would commute like what, like a half hour, an hour to work. Like you go into the city to work and then you would go, go, go the entire day. And then you had to commute back. So like your body was in fight or flight pretty much the entire day. And then you add that heavy workout in and then not fueling correctly for that. Like that was adding fuel to the fire with that for sure.
Yes, 100%.
What helped you with that if we're sticking on the exercise piece? Because I know that that's like really hard for a lot of people. I've been there too, where I've had to strategically back down on exercise. And not only is that challenging physically sometimes when you're so used to it, but mentally, is there anything that was difficult for you then, or anything that like you can remember that helped you get over that or navigate that?
It took me a really long time. I feel like it was kind of like just reminding myself to get out of my head and know that movement, I always like to say movement is medicine. And I was like preaching on that when I would do like my workouts in the past and like working out really hard. And it's something I really enjoyed and I didn't want to give it up. But I didn't know if it was like a really good, healthy relationship with it because I think at the time I was kind of just like seeing these crazy results and like being super lean. But also, I was also in my early 20s, and now that I'm like 25, I know that's not a crazy difference, but I feel like my body has like just changed and I'm growing and getting older. And I feel like you just don't like your body isn't going to react to the same things as it does in your like late, early, like teens and 20s. So, it took a lot of time for me to like be okay with it, but I also knew I loved moving my body regardless, and it makes me feel so good and gets me ready for my day. So I was researching and doing things that felt like a good in between. I find that like I can never do cold turkey on things. Like I didn't want to just be like, hey, I've been doing strength training for the past 2.5 years. I'm just gonna go straight into like yoga. Like that's not really like my vibe. I was like, I feel like I would quit immediately. I really need to do some research and see what's something that's in between. So I was kind of like doing this lower impact strength training where it was like really just like really light, not really light, but like lighter free weights and stuff like that, that felt like I was still doing what I would used to do in the past, but it was like a lot lighter on the body and I wasn't feeling so inflamed anymore. And then my boyfriend's sister was like, try Pilates, just go and do like a trial run and see if you like it. And I really did. So I kind of just started doing a class once a week on a Sunday. It was kind of like a nice way for me to like reset. And I really started just like going once a week for a couple months. And I felt this huge difference in my body. I was elongating my body. I used to be a dancer. Like I felt like I haven't stretched or had like this strength in my core that I haven't had in years. So, it kind of just takes a lot, it takes a little bit. Anything when it comes to workout, if you want to see results or changes in your body, it doesn't happen overnight. So I just had to constantly remind myself that like the same way that it did in the beginning when I started my workout journey was going to happen to me again. It's just going to take a while, and just to own and lean into the process and the progress of it. And I've been doing that for over 6 months now between like lower impact strength training, a lot of walking, and my Pilates. And I absolutely love my schedule now. And it's all about the patience and just like knowing that the outcome that you want to have from it will come. It just takes time and your body needs to heal. And that's kind of just like, I think that process for me needed to happen.
Yep. Yeah. I think patience and trust that your body isn't going to, like, you're not just going to lose all your progress from switching routines, or, like sometimes body changes might happen and sometimes they won't. Like, I see a lot of people who, when they switch from a really intense workout regimen, they actually are stronger and they're fitter because they're fueling more appropriately, and then they're also like challenging their body in a different way, and it's not as intense. They're not degrading the muscle, they're like building it up. So I think trusting that your body, just listening to your body and trusting that it knows what it's doing when you've switched, being like, okay, this feels good, like this feels better physically, mentally, and leaning into that versus the brain can be very fickle and be like, oh, well, I should be doing these heavy weightlifting sessions still, or if this isn't enough, or, some of
Yeah.
the ways.
Yeah, I think I've just come to a point where like I think like just leaning into what feels right will just kind of be my routine moving forward. And like if years from now I feel like doing heavier weightlifting and it's okay and my body reacts, like I think that's fine, but it's ever evolving. So I think just it takes a little bit of time to get to that point where like you're satisfied with that. It's definitely like a mind thing for sure.
Yeah.
When it comes to something that you love and you feel like you're like really good at, because it was like really passionate for me. You know, it was something that I started doing after I stopped dancing. So it was kind of like I felt like I didn't want to give it up, but my body was telling me like it's time to like let's pump the brakes a little bit and like
Yep.
switch things up.
Yep, exactly. And that goes back to like you're very intuitive with your body. You knew deep down like this is a change that I need to do for the better to feel better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So one thing we did once we got your labs back, well, let's go through your labs. So a few highlights was we ran a hair tissue mineral analysis. So that test shows your mineral status from the past 3 months, as well as certain body systems. It also shows toxic metals and gives us really good insight into gut function, adrenals, stress response, so much more. So we found with your mineral test that you were almost a four lows pattern, which means all four of her macro minerals were low or nearing low. So technically, you were three lows because your potassium was within normal, but we still focused on potassium rich foods because we had some thyroid stuff going on. But for me, that definitely showcases we've had longer term stress. And we also know that, 10 plus years on birth control depletes minerals, poor digestion, because we had some digestive stuff going on, which we'll talk about next. All of those things lead to inadequate and depleted minerals, and minerals run the body. So we really focused on targeted foods rich in the minerals that you were low in
Hmm.
and mineral mocktails. And I remember you messaged me a few weeks after just doing the mineral mocktails. I think it was before we even got your labs back because I always start people on mineral mocktails. And you were like, I noticed the difference from the minerals alone. And I responded, I was like, I had just gotten your lab results back. And I was like, that makes sense because we're really depleted.
And I had at that point, I was like, well, I know what minerals are, but I had no idea how much minerals affect the overall body, or like I was basically like, you're feeling this way because you have no minerals left. I was like, okay, so what does this mean? And it was actually kind of a fun way to encourage myself to kind of start playing around with, fun drinks at home and like, stuff like that in the food. So, yeah, to this very day, I still have 2 to 3 mineral mocktails a
Yes.
day.
Yes. Perfect. I know that's like one of those long-term things. I'm with everyone's graduation protocol. I'm like, continue the mineral mocktails because those are necessary for long-term health. So I'm glad that you're still doing those and loving those.
Yes.
And then on your HTMA2, we also found really high levels of two metals, two toxic metals. So uranium was high and then mercury was high. So we did some specific binders to help eliminate the uranium. And then with the mercury, we talked about liver support and just working on detoxification pathways in general. All of that was really important, but that is one thing that we found with your test that definitely makes sense with your feeling of inflammation and some of your weight fluctuations too.
Hmm. For sure. And at that point, it was kind of difficult for me to grasp that information. And maybe you could speak on that a little bit more because I was like, I just feel like I always thought I was doing everything right. Like, I was like, I eat whole foods. Like, I was raised in a family where, like, because of my mom's thyroid disease and stuff like that, like, have your proteins and your veggies and your carbs. And, like, I just, like, was active and I drank enough water and I don't drink all that much. So it was kind of like, why is this like why is this all so bad if I feel like I'm just doing everything that everyone's been telling me, like you're doing this so well and you are so healthy. So it was kind of like really hard for me to understand why these results were so like bad or negative, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like it's like, yay, something's wrong. Like I actually have information now. And
Right,
but then at the same time, you're like, but why? Like, how did it get to that point? So,
right.
with the minerals, I think for you it was very much undernourishing in general, just, unintentionally underfueling because I think you were, and we talked about like being almost like overly healthy. And part of that was because of that fear of eating certain foods and what it was going to do to your weight. And you were already so uncomfortable and what, if it was going to make you feel more bloated. And also just coming from like that weight training and, body recomp and stuff like that, you just had a lot of thoughts around that, which makes sense. And birth control depletes minerals and stress depletes minerals. So that whole picture, when you have and I can't remember, I didn't screenshot this part, but I can't remember your metabolic type, but based on your lab results, we just know that you're very depleted. And when you're very depleted, your body's less resilient to stress. It's also more prone to inflammation. Just all your symptoms align with that. And then the toxic metals, typically uranium specifically, is going to come from water. So and I've seen that one a lot in people. And in my mineral test, I have high uranium too. It's kind of one of those that most of the time it's from water, but it's just
Mhm,
very fickle, like to find exactly where it's coming from. So that's where typically I have people test their water. And, there's a lot in there. Even if you have a fridge water filter, it's not enough.
mhm,
And with the hair test, it's what's leaving the hair. So that's the good thing. It might have been a past exposure when like you live somewhere else or I live somewhere else and our body's like detoxifying it. So having that binder and board just helps detox that faster.
mhm.
And there's so many things that birth control does in the background that we just aren't educated on. Like, and I think that was a huge part of your story because you started at such a young age and you were on it combined with some of the stress and underfueling. I think a lot of that had to do with it, even though you were doing the things right on paper.
Right. And I think that was the most frightening thing because at that point, once we started getting in and working together, and you were pinpointing these areas where I was deficient and how I could easily fix them, I was kind of like, so just being on birth control this entire time, for what I can remember, like 15 to almost 25, I don't know life not on it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, it kind of just became part of my routine. And even if I wasn't sexually active, it kind of just I just never stopped, like, why do you stop it? Like, my gynecologist was like, it doesn't hurt you, you're on a low dosage, and stuff like that. And even if my mom would ask, like, should my daughter get off of it? Like, she's been on it for a while. Like, I think it might be a good chance for her to like kind of take a break from it. Like, she was even saying that before it even clicked in my mind that I should be doing that. They were like, no, it doesn't hurt, like blah blah blah. Like, they of course never tell you that, but I just like, even when I told my gynecologist, once we solidified like you're ready to go off your birth control, I told her, I'm like, I'm going off my birth control. This is the time where I've been on it for 10 years. I'm just ready to get off of it. And they kind of want to ask more questions and kind of like have you stay on it. But I was kind of like, no, I'm just ready. And they were like, well, what are you gonna do now? And you answer, you're like, well, the obvious, like, if I'm sexually active, you do the other things.
Yeah.
But um, but that was basically it. Like, it's kind of just like I'm just ready. And I feel like also, if someone is afraid to like want to get off of it and tell their gynecologist or their doctor in general, it's kind of like, just put your foot down and be like, I'm just going to do this for myself, and if I'm ready to go back on it, I'll come back to you. But like, not being afraid to just be like, I want to get off of it just because. Like, you don't need to have this like solid
Yes.
answer. I feel
Yes.
like they were trying to pull some type of like answer out of me that but I don't think it was like anyone's business for me to say like, I've been working towards like a new lifestyle and with a dietitian on this stuff, and because I feel like that it just like wouldn't get me anywhere. But it was kind of something I was like afraid to like actually do and like cut it off with the pharmacy. Like, I don't need
Hmm.
this anymore, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because it was just like a lot of like red flags come up in those conversations from the prescriber or the doctor, and it's kind of like a weird, awkward thing. Like, I don't need to tell you all the details of why. It's
Yeah.
like, that's just enough. Like, I'm just ready to do this for my body.
Yeah. Yeah. And I talk, I mean, unfortunately, I feel like I talk about a lot of that same thing with a lot of clients where they're like scared to tell their doctor or OB like that they want to come off birth control. And I
Right.
think a lot of times women get pushback for it because even doctors, there's this misconception of like, oh, if you come off, it's going to be a terrible time for you. Or like, yeah, like how are you going to prevent pregnancy when there's lots of ways to prevent pregnancy? We're just always told like, oh, it's on the woman, they have to take birth control.
Right.
I have some episodes about that. If anyone's interested in that, go search the archives. But really advocating for yourself, and you're exactly right. You don't need to give an excuse or a reason. Like if they want to come off, that is enough. And if they give you any, you know, crap about it, then find a new doctor because you don't need to share that.
And I also
And
think the red flag with that, Taylor, which is really, I like that you brought that up, is like your doctor's like, it's going to be a really bad experience once you come off of it. X, Y, and Z could happen to you. And which, to your point, is like, it doesn't need to be that experience because you could actually holistically and naturally make it a better experience and heal your body. But it's just so sad that we don't have the knowledge about how you could actually successfully get off birth control. And it's just engraved into all women that once you get off of it, you could gain weight again, have the bad acne, or,
Mhm.
blah, blah, blah. Like, so it's just like, that's something where it's like more upsetting to me now after going through this journey with you. It's kind of like I hope in the future that I could help people around me or my future daughter one day, like that, you could actually like naturally get off birth control in a way that's safe and you won't have to go through those hardships with your
Yes.
body.
Yep. Amen. I mean, you just coming on here and sharing your story is doing just that. So it's so helpful for people to know that doesn't have to be a thing. And you are one of the rarer people who started for pregnancy prevention versus a lot of women are put on it for whatever reason, acne, period issues, stuff like that. So it makes sense for a lot of women, even you not being put on it for that reason, but a lot of women are scared to come off because they were put on it to fix X symptom when that's really not fixing it. There's the deeper root problem that we haven't been addressing. So by addressing it ahead of time, having the right support, the right plan, the right data from the functional labs, you can have a smooth experience. So,
For
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, so we talked about the minerals. We talked about you also had low iodine, which iodine is really, really important for detoxification, skin health, thyroid. So especially with your history of thyroid, you're pretty deficient in iodine. So with the family thyroid history, we wanted to really focus on optimizing thyroid health. And I just shared with Livia after or before we hopped on, we retested her thyroid recently after going through an iodine protocol, and it looks so much better than when we started, which is really cool. So um, yeah, you got like a sneak preview of that. We haven't gone over it yet.
Yeah, I'm excited to go over that.
And then the last thing I wanted to highlight was that you did have quite a bit of gut overgrowth going on, which was interesting because you had worked with a functional provider for gut health specifically. But we did find that there was quite a bit of overgrowth, including some like inflammatory bacteria and then H. pylori, which H. pylori can, in the research, can be connected to thyroid stuff too, and metabolic rate and all that kind of stuff. So we wanted to, that's what we are just finishing up working on together. That was the last phase because we had to go through some other preliminary steps because I'm very passionate about we can't just jump into a killing protocol if we're deficient in minerals and our detox pathways aren't open if we're like high in uranium. Like we have to prep the body ahead of time because if we just jump into that prematurely, you're going to feel even worse before you feel better. And you haven't had any symptoms on the gut protocol, right? Like at least not that you've told me about. So,
No, not, and nothing came up. My mom was always convinced like something's gonna come up with candida, like, because the symptoms that I was having was stuff that she had in the past,
hmm,
but it was kind of like nothing ever alarming came up from that. So, um, no, I don't think so. And then
yeah,
you said that,
you
and
would know.
I would know. And then at that point, I was like, well, that's so odd because I felt like nothing was ever going wrong with my thyroid. So
Hmm.
it all made sense once you said that. And I told my mom that, and she's like, that all makes sense.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, so we worked on the gut killing protocol to eradicate those negative gut microbes and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, we are just finishing up because that was a big thing for you. I know you mentioned that of I've done a lot of stuff in the past. It's been where it helps for a little bit of time, but then
Yes.
it comes back. And
Yes.
so and that's another props to you. You were like, I will do anything you tell me. And so we went through quite a few phases together of you extended your time working with me by a couple of months because we wanted to be very strategic in terms of making sure that we hit every single aspect of what we found in the labs. And we did find quite a bit of imbalance there. So we did the remineralization, the focusing on foundation, stress, nervous system, iodine, and then we, later on down the road, we were like, okay, let's hit this gut stuff so we can eradicate this because I'm imagining down the road this would pop up again if we don't kill it off.
Yeah, I think that was like just like a fear of mine of like these 2 years before working with you or and finding you was that I would do something different and I'd start feeling some relief and kind of go on with my life and then I would do one thing wrong, like in my mind do one thing wrong and like try to enjoy myself and I would be
Hmm.
on vacation and want to have like some drinks or stay out late or something like that. And I felt like anytime I messed with like my daily routine, because that's why I felt like I needed to be so like routine oriented. Like I can't mess with my routine because every time I did, I had some type of flare up. And at that point, I was so done with it. I was like, I'm not going to do anything or live my life to the fullest because I need to be so regimented with my routine, which isn't realistic and it's not for longevity. Like, and um, now that I've been able to kind of like naturally heal things, I could truly live that life where I kind of have that balance of like living a life that feels, organic and natural for me to feel healthy. Like I just like naturally want to live a healthy lifestyle, but not something that's too intense where it's not realistic or I can't have fun or I can't enjoy myself in life. Like I feel like way back when I truly thought I was kind of living that healthy lifestyle, but I think I was more on the spectrum of kind of like being a little crazy about it just because internally I was feeling so crappy and I could never get to a point where I had answers that I felt like I had no other choice but to be like on that spectrum of like crazy regimented and routine and it was actually driving me crazy and
Hmm.
doing more damage than anything else.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that's like also one of the biggest things I've been able to like get out of this as well is like now I'm going to be traveling across the country and for work and I'm going to London and like now I feel like even just a year ago I'd be so afraid to do that. Like, oh my God, like trying to prep all my snacks and like just like trying to prep everything I could ahead of time just so I know I felt okay. And I think being too prescriptive and it was like putting more stress on my body once and you know what I mean, so like I'm kind of going into things feeling like I know what I like, I know what I don't like, I know what doesn't irritate me and what doesn't, so I could like go through my life with more ease and knowing that you could definitely have a balance between things.
Yes, 100%. That's such a good thing to highlight is just having your life back and having that balance back. And it 100% makes sense that you were a little like controlling of your life because you were trying to protect yourself from feeling worse than you did. And so that makes total sense to me. And now that we've gotten to the root causes of why you weren't feeling like yourself and you were feeling bad and you're off birth control and you are feeling great, like you don't have to control those things anymore. You can go out to eat and not worry about those types of things and travel without the additional stress. And then that also is a positive feedback loop because then you're not as stressed and it just
Right.
goes from there.
Yeah.
So was there any other things that you learned from the experience or anything else you want to highlight for anyone specifically who's like listening to this, maybe on the fence of whether or not they, want to come off birth control, or if they're like, I don't know if I need support with that, or like the labs sound interesting, but I'm not quite sure if that's like necessary or not. I guess any words of wisdom that you would share with anyone who's like kind of listening and thinking about this for themselves.
I guess my biggest piece of advice, and it probably sounds cliche, but it's like really trusting your gut, literally. It's kind of like the world that we live in now, the internet is endless possibilities to give you information that isn't always trustworthy or accurate. And I feel like do what you need to do to feel like you got to get answers. I think going through different trial runs is like really important because I feel like I wouldn't have gotten to the place where I found you and also like got to this point. Sometimes I know this probably sounds bad, but sometimes you just like really need to hit rock bottom in
Yeah,
order to like
totally.
get to a point where you could have like answers and like that aha moment of like all along I just really needed to listen to my body and know my triggers. So, if you're going through a time right now where you have been trying everything you can through doctors or at home remedies or whatever it is, and things aren't working out, or deep down inside you feel like you could actually get to the next step to get feel better in yourself, just like take that chance. And if it doesn't work out for you, it doesn't work out for you. You could always try again. So, yeah, that's my
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah, and also like you mentioned and we talked about earlier, like advocating for yourself. Like if you do feel like shit, you don't need to feel like shit. Even if your doctors are telling you your labs are coming back normal, like it's fine. Or the one I hear, the $1 million one I hear all the time, it's we'll just switch birth control pills and that
Right.
should solve it, and then it doesn't. And people are playing birth control roulette or medication roulette, and they're just not getting answers. To your point about speaking to or listening to your gut, I think that's another thing too, of like you deserve more than that. And that's where the root cause digging of like, but what's causing that versus just a surface level lab eval and being like, well, it's normal. Like there's something going on. You know your body best. And if you don't feel good, there's something deeper going on.
Yeah, I think if anyone, I think we need to like something that I would love for to change in society in general when it comes to, health and medicine is like we truly deserve to have like real answers. And I'm sick of like the surface level. Like, not every single girl on the planet has PCOS. Like, I don't want to be told, like, oh, you probably just have PCOS, do this. So it's kind of like, I know deep down, like, maybe I did, but I was also like, I probably don't. And there's something else going on here. So, I kind of just like trying to normalize, like, that our bodies shouldn't like have to go through certain things, even
Mm,
though we're told from a very young age that, because of your period, you're gonna feel X, Y, and Z. But if you take care of yourself, like, and know your triggers and know your body, and learn your body, then you don't have to feel that way. So,
yeah. Yeah. No, thank you for sharing all of that. So to wrap up, I always ask, what is one way, Olivia, that you are nourishing yourself lately?
my work in progress here, nourishing my body. I've been eating more snacks.
I love it. Okay. Talk to me more about
Well,
that.
so I guess because I always blame it on work, but I have a very busy schedule. And I travel a lot. I work very long hours and I love it. I love working. I love being busy. I love, that's kind of what drives me in life. So, um, but I wasn't fueling and nourishing myself because, I'd go to the gym in the morning and I would eat something and then I would end up having back to back meetings for 4+ hours. And then it's like, oh crap, it's almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I haven't had my lunch yet. And I just making, if I can't do meal times more regularly, it's kind of keeping, healthy and yummy snacks nearby and not being afraid. I think at one point we talked through this, but I was afraid of like processed foods. And because just during that time in my life, I think I wasn't educating myself correctly. And just also with the way that I was feeling, I was kind of like, okay, I just need to eat all whole foods. Like I can't like eat anything processed, but you could go to the store and find really great processed foods that have really good ingredients and that are tasty. And so trying to nourish myself more and keeping more snacks on deck when I have those hunger cues so I could keep myself fueled throughout the day. And I definitely notice a difference in my energy levels, and my focus if I am fueling myself and honoring those hunger cues throughout the day, even if I can't have a meal, close back to back every couple hours, trying to have those snacks that also, help with, having like the Brazil nuts because they're also like really good for my body as well. So, that's something that I've been doing to help nourish myself, and I want to continue doing that. It's
Yes.
a work in
Yes.
progress, but we're getting there.
Perfection. Yeah. I know
I
that's
love
that's a
that.
hard one for not just you, but a lot of people too with the snacks and working, and you're a busy gal. So it's sometimes hard to fit those in, but you've been doing a lot of hard work to do that more consistently. So that's great.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes. And you're still doing your mineral mocktails, so that's another way you're
Yeah, I'm
nourishing
still
yourself.
doing those and I'm mixing things up. And when I travel or if I'm like out and about and I can't make something like completely perfect at home, like a little concoction, like having the little mini pack with me in my purse, I kind of like drop into like iced tea or like something like that. And it's just like a really easy way to just like have things on hand and know that I'm doing something good for myself. So yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this insight and wisdom. It's going to be such a great lesson for a lot of people who are going through very similar things to you, because I know that there's a lot of women out there who are. So appreciate you being on and joining us. And for those of you listening, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Please, if this resonated with you, share it with a friend, some other woman who needs to listen to it and build this insight. And please also leave a 5-star review, a rating on iTunes if you can. And until next time, stay nourished.